Overcoming obstacles in life is our topic today. How about also overcoming difficulties in life and, how A Course in Miracles helps us to align with a life of purpose. And I'm going to discuss a little bit about breathing meditation today. Hey, everyone, this is James Nussbaumer. Thank you for joining for a Better Life podcast. It's Monday morning, bright and early. Actually, not too bright, but it's early on a Monday morning. And today is February 19th, 2018. And as I sip on my morning coffee, I'm just so glad to be here with you today. And I appreciate you joining me today. Let's talk about overcoming personal challenges and overcoming the challenges in life. And by the way, before I get going here, let me do a little housekeeping and ask that if you would you please subscribe to my YouTube channel? If you're listening to this at YouTube right now, please go ahead and subscribe right now as you're listening to me. And if you are at my website listening to this, in the header above and the footer below, you'll notice a YouTube icon. Just click on that and you will be a subscriber of mine on YouTube. And also, please follow me on Twitter and Facebook. I love, and on Twitter, I really, engage well on Twitter and share and receive a lot of messages. But let's get back to talking about overcoming challenges and living a life with purpose. Eleanor and Jonathan Brisbane, near the Grand Forks area, way up north in the Dakotas, had written in, and she had said that last week we had discussed about the Holy Spirit and the healing powers of the Holy Spirit, and what exactly do I mean in my blogs and in my book about the undoing powers, the correction powers of the Holy Spirit within us rather than outside of us. And she says she's having a hard time, wrapping her brain around that idea of the Holy Spirit within, rather than, the way we were traditionally taught, which is okay that we were taught that way, because let's face it, as we're growing, we're coming more whole. And when we become more whole, that means we're closer to awakening to who we really are. So as time goes on, it's easy for us to understand that our divinity is being within us, but not within the body. But let's move on and talk about this, and maybe this can clear that up. Her question, her and Jonathan's question. But overcoming challenges in life is something that we're all faced with at times, many times in our life. And, let me just say that long before my incarceration, for those of you that know my story, I was incarcerated for 8 years of a 10-year sentence over a foolish securities violation in my practice as a financial advisor, where I had spent 25 years. And as I describe in my first book, which is called The Master of Everything, A Story of Mankind in the World of Illusion We Call Life, as I described there, I thought that it's the first book, by the way, of an ever-developing series. Oh, and by the way, I've got to add, book 3 is now available. It's on sale at the publisher only, and then April 1st it will be in stores everywhere. It's called And Then I Knew My Abundance. But the first 3 books were written totally in longhand in prison, because there's no computer there. And I found my way to a publisher, where I'm posting this at another blog article. You'll read about that. But anyways, in the first book, The Master of Everything, which is the pilot of the series, I thought there was a pile of ongoing problems in my face before I went to prison, and the things that happened that got me in trouble, my errors in thinking. But I believe these illusory distractions, I like to say, caused me to make wrong-minded decisions that ultimately did land me in prison by an example-setter judge who wanted to use me as an example. And the prison sentence was overtly political. Everyone agrees. But it was during a time during panic and abuses in the investment industry. And it was at the time when, I don't want to mention his name here because it's not fair, but the big financier from New York, who embezzled billions and billions, and that was going on, and the Enron deal, and all that was going on. And so, I made whole of my mistakes, and no one had ended up losing money, but I still, that judge slammed the gavel pretty hard on me. So, but anyways, but overcoming personal challenges in relationships with me and so much more, these problems that were going on in my life as I perceived them to be were merely errors in the way I was traveling along an illusory pathway. Not only was I on the wrong road, but also using the wrong means for getting there. And even at times, maybe if I was on the right track, my vision was obscured with too much ego-based thinking. And I'll explain a little bit more about that in a second. Basically, ego is the body. And when the body is filled with fear and doubt and judgment. And when we make decisions and act based on those fearful thoughts and judgmental thoughts and criticism and self-doubt, when we make decisions based on that, out of being afraid, that's the ego in us. And usually that leads to some problems. But not only was I on the wrong road, I was really getting nowhere. And by the way, here's a related article when I mentioned relationships that I would like you to check out if you're having a problem with relationships. You can go to my blog, jamesnussbaumer.com, blog/relationship, broken relationship, it's titled. You can find that there. But it will help you how to take some brave yet easy action steps on healing that relationship. But my vision was obscured by the entanglements of the path that I was on, and overcoming obstacles in life, or we could say to overcome difficulties. And it seemed I just couldn't live with a purpose. I just couldn't find a real purpose in life. I was in the financial planning business. I spent 25 years there, and I like to say it was a business I loathed, not loved. LOTHED. I was there, wasn't really excited about it, but it was paying the bills and I was making good income, and I just made a stupid mistake at a bad time for things that were going on in this country, the United States. So the Holy Spirit, the force within us, had put up a brick wall, so to speak. I just wasn't seeing the right path. And I think the way I describe it in my first book is that he had put up a brick wall and forced me to stop. And that brick wall was the example setter judge I became face to face with. And so I was forced to make a screeching halt at the wall, just as I crashed, and just plain decide to figure out how I was going to break free of ego-based ways. And when I say ego-based ways, I'm meaning far too often we think of the ego as, someone who walks around bragging about himself all the time. Sure, that's ego-based ways, but the ego-based ways I'm talking about is making decisions, like I said earlier, based on fear and critical judgment and self-doubt and those kind of negative aspects, making judgments and decisions that way. That's really not using your true power of choice in the right way. But when we act out of love and faith and devotion and loyalty and make decisions there, that's acting from truly within us. And that part of us is the Holy Spirit. So I hope that answers that question there. But so this was the part of the Holy Spirit's undoing process with me. And it continues for me as I see today. Yes, facing the example setter judge was part of the Holy Spirit's undoing, because when I was faced with that 10-year prison sentence, I went to prison for 10 years. The judge shook his finger at me and said, "You're going to do every bit of that 10 years. Don't think you're going to get out of there early." And my lawyer shook his head at me and said, and my lawyer really didn't do a good job. But anyways, we're not going to go there on that. So I made the decision to go back to my first love when I entered the prison, when the prison doors were slammed behind me, and my first love was writing. So I dove into writing, and from there I stumbled into A Course in Miracles. One thing led to another. It was in my 7th year, a mainstream publisher had found me, which actually I found them, but they answered to my query letters. I had enough query letters written to publishers to publish the rejection letters from publishers back to me, rejecting me. I had enough rejection letters to wallpaper the entire prison walls. But Ozark Mountain Publishing Company had found their way to see themselves getting involved with my work. I had no computer and I was writing by hand, but I got the job done. And that's where my first 3 books were written. So had I not gone to prison over this error that I made, those books would have never been written, because I would have stumbled into another career, probably something that I was going to loathe then again. And you know what I'm saying there. So I also must add that this is why I'm always suggesting that you learn breathing meditation exercises. I've learned, I'm not against traditional prayer in any sense of the matter, don't get me wrong. I was raised as a Catholic, and traditional prayer was always in my life, and that's great. But, as I matured into adulthood, I've learned some power in mindfulness meditation exercises, breathing meditation. It helps you to get to the inner core of who you are, to actually touch base with the Holy Spirit within you and to see what's going wrong. But so there are plenty of, in fact, at my website, there's another blog you can just go to. If you're at my blog, you just key in the bar across the top, jamesnussbaumer.com/blog/mindfulness meditation. You'll find I got several articles there on that may help you. So as I was saying, I surely was not happy to be there in prison in that volatile and often violent din of the cell block. And I mean violent. I've got stacks of journals I can tell you that I had, as they piled up and accumulated, I sent home to my sister, who had stored them in her husband's gun safe. And because I couldn't keep the amount of writing that I had accumulated in all those years in a little 2x4 box that they give you, and risk them getting stolen. But there's spatters of blood actually on some of my writings, because I was sitting in an area where someone right over my shoulder was punched or stabbed, or I mean, those kind of things went on in a state penitentiary all the time. And so I've been home 3 years now, and I'm still shaky a little bit over the experiences there. But when I say the often violent din of the cell block, I mean violent. In my first book, I describe one of the 7 murders I witnessed while I was in prison, while I was spending 11 days in the hole, called segregation, which many people know as the hole. But anyways, that's explained in my first book, The Master of Everything, and I hope you pick it up if you don't already have a copy of that. So my point is, as I was saying, that the process of overcoming challenges and living life with a purpose, and I began to understand what's really going on within me and what I need to be doing and what sensations within me I need to be following, rather than shooting from the hip like I had been doing for so long. I no longer had any problems when I made that decision to do so. And sooner or later, while I was in prison, the right people ended up finally showing up in my life, their lives, meeting with my life. And that's what led to me from one letter to another connection, who sent me a letter back with another connection, gave me reason to end up writing a letter to Ozark Mountain Publishing Company, one of the many publishers. And, finally now I'm with a happy family there with those fine people at Ozark Mountain, and just a great relationship going on. And they're as thrilled as I am about this 3rd book that's coming out. So, that all happened while I was in prison. And I walked out of prison with that first book already in stores and on Amazon and everywhere on sale. And book 2 was out shortly after that. Now here we are with book 3. And now here I am doing a podcast called For a Better Life podcast every Monday. So let's get back to this. So I would tell myself, not only while I was in there, trying to get overcoming these challenges, I'd tell myself, not only will I be released from prison one day, but I have been released from my errors as well. Now, I was in there with many people doing life sentences. There are no white collar crimes in a state penitentiary. You're just thrown in with all of them. So for my 10-year sentence looked, very minimal compared to the ones who had already been in there 30, 40 years, 50 years. So, but at that time of my incarceration, while I was going through that, it was as though I was seeing a track of fallen dominoes standing back up one by one, but in a new, bright and shiny, passionate design. Dominoes, how we play the game and you knock one over and they all fall over. When I went away, that was me, all them dominoes just laying there, down. So it was like seeing the dominoes standing back up, looking great, looking brand new, or getting brand new, getting to look better, and standing at full attention. And while overcoming these challenges, I was beginning to see a path to live life with a purpose and living at each moment as I would write to you and to my readers. I would write on Sketchpad, and then once I had everything the way I wanted it, I would neatly, by longhand, transfer it into composition journals, which a friend would send in to me, a friend from the outside would send in to me, and those would be my equivalent of computer entry. And when I completed one book, I would take it to the mail room at the prison, and they'd pack it up for me and send it to my sister, where it'd be for safekeeping until I got home. Except the first book went straight to the publisher, and of course that, I just had mentioned that was on sale, 6 months before I got out of prison. Boy, what a thrill that was! Let me tell you. So, but. Now, here's another related article that I want to suggest too about ego identification. At my website, you can go to my blog and put in the antics of the ego, and you will find a great article to help you understand more about the ego identification that is a part of all of us as human beings. But like I'd said, while I was in prison, things were unfolding one at a time, and the right people were showing up to assist me on my path. So I hope that helps answer the question from the folks in the Dakotas on the Holy Spirit's undoing process. It's a process. It's not a magic trick. It takes time. And I was seeing this happening right in front of me as I was studying the principles and diving in deeply to the principles and lessons contained in the Course in Miracles and other readings I was doing and all the writing that I was doing. And, I like how A Course in Miracles teaches that the miracle of inner justice and inner peace is the freedom that can correct all errors. Every problem is simply only an error in thought, an error in thought that we take physical action on. So if we can recognize those errors in thought when they happen, and rather don't take action on them, there we go in understanding what it takes to live a better life. It does injustice to you, on the other hand, and when you act on errors in thought, it does injustice to yourself, and therefore your problems become more illusion that just piles up and piles up, and the light of your true essence cannot shine forth. The Holy Spirit, who I discovered to be our true inner self, does not evaluate injustices, though, as great or small, or more or less, because they have no properties to him. The Holy Spirit is not in a physical sense. The Holy Spirit is our divinity that is within us while we're in this world, guiding us along and helping us. I referred to in an article I've written that I'm going to be posting this podcast in as riding the tandem bicycle ride, where think of the Holy Spirit as in the front, in the lead part on the tandem bike, doing the steering and the guiding, and we were in the back seat. With me, before I had entered prison and had all these problems, it was sure I was close to God and the Holy Spirit, but it seemed as though I was in the front and asking him for help who was behind me, asking God to pedal harder for me. It's no, we need to have it the other way around, where we put the Holy Spirit in the front seat and we let him gently whisper to us when we need to pedal harder on something. I hope that clears some things up too. But they are simply mistakes that we make that just make us suffer, but needlessly. With this kind of knowledge, I like to say, and you can stop crucifying yourself and ask the Holy Spirit to remove the nails and the crown of thorns and start overcoming challenges. Start overcoming personal challenges. The Holy Spirit makes only one judgment. He will not stop to judge whether you are hurting little or large, because little or large, there is no properties, like I'd said, with the Holy Spirit. He makes only one judgment, that you, as God's whole child, yes, in traditional terms, we can say the Son of God, if you will, must not hurt in any size, and that for you to hurt another is unjust for you. Therefore, your hurt is merely more error that will be corrected or undone. A Course in Miracles teaches us to just ask the Holy Spirit to correct any and all errors, so you may serve your function, which is your true free will. However, let me give you a word of caution. Do not believe that it's safe to give the Holy Spirit only some of your mistakes, to give him only some of your errors in thought for correction, while you keep the others to yourself. No. You must lay all the cards on the table about what's going on. When I first went away to prison, I had to lay all the cards on the table to the Holy Spirit within me and accept them for what they were, and now say, okay, what are we going to do to bounce back? We have to remember that justice, real justice, is total. It's oneness, and it's whole. There is no such thing as partial justice. If you feel guilty, you are condemning yourself. And there's too much guilt flying around in this world. We are all filled with guilt, and we try to make others feel guilty. You cannot only condemn part of yourself. You cannot only fulfill part of your purpose. Just as you do not have part of a purpose, your purpose is whole. What I'm doing right now in this podcast, speaking to you, is whole. With my books being published, it's whole with my blog articles. It's whole with my speaking engagements. Everything is connected together. It's whole. And its reason is to bring us all together, help people overcome personal challenges in life and obstacles in life through my writing, which is more wholeness in action. I guess we could say the ultimate purpose of my work is to help us all to awaken and to help us all heal, and to know that the Holy Spirit is there for us to ask for him to undo our errors and to not punish ourselves, like I'd said a minute ago, to quit crucifying ourselves over and over about mistakes we make. The Holy Spirit knows that the ego causes us to make errors, and this is why God gave us the Holy Spirit as part of who you are. Because what is the Holy Spirit? It's an extension of God. It's the Spirit of God. And if the Holy Spirit is the Spirit of God and the Holy Spirit is within us, then we also are the Spirit of God. But the Holy Spirit is our highest essence of understanding this. And if you try to analyze it, all that it's going to do is open the door for the ego to come back in and start making judgments about this kind of belief. The best thing to do is just to let your mind flow across this idea of the Holy Spirit being within you and being at one with you. Not dissecting it, just be one with the idea. Why should you treat problems of life as a tandem bike ride, I ask you, where your inner guide leads the way? Again, I'll let you answer that once you've now heard my story, and after you draw some type of flowing conclusion over that. Don't analyze it. Don't dissect it. Don't tear it apart like a mathematical project. Because if you do, you're opening the door for more separation rather than wholeness. Separation is the ego, and separation of the ego means doubt, hurt, pain, fear. Hey everyone, I invite you to sign up for my Everyday Miracles newsletter, where we, meaning you the reader and I the author, we bring our mind together for self-success, a better world. Hey, I hope you'll purchase my books and read them and dive into them. You can find them at Amazon.com, at my website, jamesnussbaumer.com. And it's available at the home page or the About Me page, and all of my blog articles near the bottom have a link that will show you how to go directly to Amazon or directly to my publisher at Ozark Mountain. Please support my work. You know, many have benefited from the material that I offer, and you know, although that I'm offering you access to that, all that I'm able to give you through my blogs and my self-help library and my live streams and webinars, I just hope that you'll support my work. And I hope you're thinking a lot about your own life as I close here today. And what I mean by that is I hope you're thinking a lot about your own natural beauty within yourself, your own natural joy and awesomeness, and whether or not you are extending that to the world or not. Because if you're not, then you need to. Because the world will be a much better place when you extend yourself. Because when you extend yourself, it makes you happy. You're bringing more bliss to the world. It makes you become more successful. And when you become more successful and happy, the world becomes a more successful and happy place. I hope you enjoyed. And by the way, you can contact me through Twitter, Facebook, or the contact page at my website on a topic that you would like me to discuss next Monday. I hope you enjoyed, and I've got to run now. James Nussbaumer signing off. God bless.